The emergency alarms dimmed. The insect alien looked at him with something strange in its silver eyes. Something close to respect. How do you know these systems? The man didn't look up. Doesn't matter where you are. Wires are wires. Machines are machines. You just have to try. The bird-like passengers whispered almost to themselves. He doesn't freeze, he doesn't stop, he just moves. The scaled family's child looked up at him, eyes wide. Are you afraid? The man finally paused. He looked at the small, alien child, then at all of them. His voice softened, but it carried. Of course I'm afraid. Fear never leaves. But Earth taught me one thing. Fear doesn't mean stop. It means keep going anyway. The cabin was silent. Dozens of aliens stared at him, their whispers gone. The insect alien lowered its head, mandibles trembling. You are not a monster. The bird-like passengers nodded slowly. You are something else. The man pulled his hood lower, returning to his seat as the last sparks of smoke drifted upward. His knuckles bled, his muscles ached, but his voice remained steady. Remember this, he said, quiet but firm. You feared a Deathworlder. You whispered about monsters. But the only reason you are alive right now is because of what you feared. He leaned back, eyes half hidden in shadow. Fear us if you want, but never forget why we survive. The cabin stayed silent. No whispers, no accusations, only wide eyes and heavy hearts. And in that silence, something shifted. They no longer saw a curse. They saw a shield. The ship groaned again, shaking slightly as if to remind them the danger wasn't over. The man's eyes narrowed. He knew another storm was coming, and when it came, he would stand again. The silent respect. The ship drifted through the dark sea of stars, its hull scarred, its systems groaning. The emergency lights had steadied now, but the silence in the cabin was heavy, not the silence of fear, but of something deeper. Every alien in the room stared at the man in the hood. He sat where he had always been, near the center row. His body leaned slightly back, his fists still raw and bloodied. His breathing was calm, his eyes half hidden in shadow. Yet his presence filled the cabin like a mountain no storm could move. No one whispered anymore. The word Deathworlder no longer passed nervously from mouth to mouth. The cabin that had once echoed with rumors was now drowned in silence. The insect, alien, finally broke the stillness. Its mandibles clicked, but its voice was quiet, almost reverent. We feared you. We spoke of monsters. But tonight, we saw something else. The man did not answer. The bird-like passengers stepped forward, their feathers trembling but no longer in panic. You fought for us, you fixed what we could not, you stood when all of us broke. The scaled family's youngest child peeked from behind its mother, eyes wide. You're not a monster. You're a protector. The man's gaze softened, slightly. He said nothing, but he nodded once, slow, as if to accept their words. Another voice rose from the back, shaky but honest. Deathworlder. The word meant curse. Now it means hope. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the passengers. Not whispers of fear, but quiet confessions of respect. The man finally spoke, his voice low but carrying through the cabin. You fear humans because of the stories. You whisper about fire, storms, poison, and war, and yes, it is true. Earth is cruel. It shaped us hard. It taught us to endure. He leaned forward slightly, his eyes catching the faint glow of the lights. But what you never understood is that survival is not just for ourselves. We fight, we build, we stand for each other. His hand flexed, the scars on his knuckles catching the light. That is what makes humans dangerous. Not because we kill, but because we refuse to let go. The cabin was silent again, but this time the silence was different. Heavy, respectful. The kind of silence given to leaders, to warriors, to legends. The ship's announcement system flickered back to life, the captain's voice shaky. Passengers, the threat has passed. We will reach Turson Station in 2 cycles. Remain calm. But the passengers no longer looked to the captain's voice for safety. Their eyes remained on the human. The insect alien lowered its head in a bow. We whispered warnings. Now we whisper gratitude. Others followed, heads lowering, voices murmuring in unison. Gratitude. Gratitude. The man closed his eyes, leaning back in his seat. He said nothing more. He didn't need to. His silence spoke louder than words. 2 cycles later, the ship docked at Turson Station. The doors opened and the passengers stepped out one by one, but none left without first glancing back. Some bowed, some touched their chests in silent thanks, others whispered blessings in their own tongues. He stayed seated until the last alien left. Then he rose, pulling his hood over his face once again. The station lights shone brighter than the ship's red glow, but to him they felt the same. Another place. Another journey. Another whisper waiting. As he walked down the ramp, he heard a small voice behind him, the scaled child from the family he had saved. It whispered softly, almost like a prayer. The Deathworlder was with us, and we lived. He didn't turn. He didn't smile. He simply kept walking into the station's crowded halls, his hood low, his steps steady. Above, the stars shimmered, silent witnesses to what had happened. And somewhere, across alien worlds, whispers began to change. No longer whispers of monsters, no longer warnings of death, but whispers of respect, the whispers of humanity. You tell stories of monsters, but you have no idea what makes us dangerous. It isn't our strength, it isn't our endurance. The ship shuddered again. Metal screamed. The lights went dark, leaving only the red glow of alarms. His eyes burned, in the shadows. What makes us dangerous is that we don't break. Not when storms tear the sky, not when fire devours the ground, and not when death is knocking at the door. The cabin was silent, every alien staring. Then, with a deafening crash, the outer hull tore open. Metal bent inward. The air filled with sparks and smoke. Shapes appeared in the opening. Tall, armored figures, claws glinting, weapons in their hands. Pirates. The aliens screamed again, pressing against the wall in terror. The man stepped forward, placing himself between the passengers and the attackers. His fists clenched, his body steady. The pirates hissed, raising their weapons. One laughed, a harsh, metallic sound. Only one stands? Easy prey. The man's lips curved into a cold smile. Try me. The first pirate lunged, and in that instant the aliens finally understood why Deathworlders were feared. The reveal. The first pirate lunged through the torn hull, its claws flashing under the red lights. The alien passengers screamed, pressing tighter against the rear wall. Some covered their eyes, others whispered frantic prayers, but the human did not move back. He stepped forward. His hand shot out, catching the pirate's wrist mid-swing. The creature snarled, trying to rip free, but it didn't move. The man's grip held it like steel. Gasps filled the cabin. The insect alien whispered, trembling, "By the stars." He stopped it with one hand. The pirate hissed in shock, its other claw slashing toward the human's chest. The man twisted, dragging the pirate's arm down and slamming his fist into the creature's side. The sound cracked. Through the cabin, bone breaking, armor denting. The pirate crumpled to the floor, groaning in pain. The passengers froze in stunned silence. The man looked down at the fallen invader, then raised his eyes to the others climbing through the breach. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with a fire the aliens had never seen before. More pirates entered, their weapons raised. Sparks rained from the hull, the ship groaning under their weight. They sneered when they saw only one man standing against them. But then they noticed the first pirate on the floor, and their sneers faltered. The leader snarled, stepping forward. "One human thinks he can stand against us," the man answered quietly, his voice carrying across the cabin. "Not thinks, knows," the leader roared, charging. 2 more followed. At its sides, the man moved fast, faster than the passengers thought possible. He ducked under the leader's swing, driving his shoulder into its chest, sending it stumbling back. He grabbed the second by the arm, using its own momentum to hurl it into the wall. The third slashed downward, but the man caught its weapon, twisted it free, and drove the butt of it into the creature's jaw. In seconds, 3 more pirates were down. The cabin erupted in shocked whispers. He fights like a storm. No. Like the stories. Like the legends. That's why they call them Deathworlders. But the man did not look at the passengers. He stood between them and the invaders, steady, unshaken, his body a shield. The pirates hesitated now. Their leader growled, but its eyes betrayed doubt. They had expected easy prey, trembling aliens with no will to resist. Instead, they had walked into the path of something far older, far stronger, the human. The leader raised its weapon and barked an order. More pirates poured through the breach, filling the cabin with claws and blades. The passengers cried out, some collapsing in terror. The man clenched his fists. He could feel the weight of every eye on him. They were waiting, for him to fall, for the monster in their whispers to finally break. But he did not break. He moved forward, faster, harder. Every strike was precise, born of years of survival on a world that punished weakness. His fists cracked bone, his legs drove like hammers. He fought not with rage, but with cold control. The pirates snarled and screamed, but one by one they fell. And all the while, the aliens watched in silence. The insect alien's mandibles trembled. He is not a monster. The bird-like, passengers whispered. He is protecting us. The scaled family clutched each other, tears in their eyes. He stands for us all. The man's chest heaved, sweat dripping down his face. His knuckles bled where claws had torn. His shoulder burned from a strike he hadn't dodged. But he stayed upright, unshaken, his body between the pirates and the passengers. Finally, only the pirate leader remained. Its armor cracked, its weapon broken. It hissed in fury, stepping back toward the breach. Its eyes met the humans, and for the first time it looked afraid. The man stepped closer, his voice low and steady. Go back, tell the others what you saw. Tell them why humans survive. The leader snarled but did not strike again. It hissed a command, and the remaining pirates dragged their wounded back through the torn hull. A moment later, the breach, sealed as emergency shutters slammed shut. Silence filled the cabin. The human stood in the center, blood on his hands, breath steady. Around him, the aliens stared, wide-eyed, trembling. For the first time since the whispers began, no one spoke the word monster. Instead, the insect alien lowered its head. Its mandibles clicked softly, almost like a bow. You saved us. The bird-like passengers echoed, their voices hushed. The Deathworlder stood alone, and we lived. The man turned, his eyes sweeping the cabin. He saw the fear still in their faces, but now it was different. It was no longer the fear of prey, watching a predator. It was the fear of awe, the fear of respect. He wiped the blood from his knuckles and pulled his hood back over his head. His voice was quiet, but it carried. You whisper about humans. You fear what you don't understand. But remember this. Strength is not about killing. It's about standing when no one else will. He walked back to his seat, every eye following him. The aliens pressed aside, giving him space as if he were something sacred. He sat down again, breathing slow, his hood shadowing his face. The cabin stayed silent, and in that silence, a truth settled heavy in their hearts. They had feared the Deathworlder on board, but without him, none of them would have survived. The Deathworlder's strength. The cabin was quiet after the last pirate vanished through the breach. The emergency shutters sealed with a hiss, leaving the passengers in stunned silence. Smoke drifted through the air, mixing with the faint metallic taste of blood. The red emergency lights pulsed slowly, like the heartbeat of the ship itself. In the center stood the human, his hood drawn low again. His knuckles were raw, blood dripping onto the floor, but his body was steady. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, yet his eyes stayed sharp, scanning the room, calculating. No one moved. The aliens pressed against the walls, their wide eyes locked on him. The insect alien's mandibles clicked nervously. The bird-like pair huddled close, feathers trembling. The scaled family clutched their children, staring at the man who had stood between them and death. For so long they had whispered about the Deathworlder as a curse, a monster, a nightmare. Now they had seen him fight, and what they saw was not a monster, it was something far more dangerous. The man broke the silence. His voice was calm, deep, carrying authority that none of them could deny. The ship isn't safe yet. The insect alien twitched. What do you mean? The pirates are gone. The man shook his head. They'll be back, or something else will hit us before we reach the station. This ship is wounded, and panic will kill us faster than claws or fire. The words cut through the air like steel. The aliens glanced at one another, fear twisting in their faces. Panic was already in their hearts, but now it was something they could feel, like poison crawling through their veins. The human stepped forward, his shadow stretching across the cabin. If you want to live, you'll listen to me. The insect alien bristled. Why should we follow a Deathworlder? The man turned, his eyes locking on it with a gaze so sharp it made the creature flinch. Because you saw what happened when you didn't. The insect alien lowered its head, mandibles clicking nervously. It said nothing more. The man looked around the cabin. We need to stabilize the systems, reroute power, clear the smoke, prepare for another attack. The bird-like aliens trembled. But we don't know how. You don't need to know how, the man said. You just need to move when I tell you. Fear freezes you. Action saves you. Something in his tone, firm but steady, harsh but protective, cut through their panic. Slowly, one by one, the passengers nodded. The human moved quickly, guiding them. He pointed to the scaled family. You. Use the fire suppressors. Clear the smoke before it chokes us. To the bird-like pair. You. Reset the ventilation grid. Feathers small enough to reach the switches. To the insect alien. Your claws are sharp. Tear open the panel near the rear wall. Power lines run through there. We'll need them. They hesitated, fear still heavy in their bones. But his eyes burned with such certainty that they moved. Shaky at first, then faster. For the first time since the whispers began, the aliens worked. The man joined them, ripping wires, twisting metal, his bloody hands working as though pain was nothing. He patched systems with strips of torn fabric, rerouted circuits with a scavenged blade, used the environment the way only someone born on a death world could. The passengers watched him in awe. He wasn't just fighting, he was building, fixing, leading. And slowly the ship responded. The smoke thinned, the light steadied. The insect alien stumbled, its claws scraping the wall. It hissed in panic. Attack! We are under attack! Chaos erupted. The whispers turned to shouts, the fear breaking loose. And in the middle of it all, the man stayed seated, his hood still, low, his eyes sharp. The aliens were terrified of the Deathworlder among them, but they did not yet know. The Deathworlder might be the only one who could save them. Memories of Earth. The red alarm lights pulsed across the starship cabin, throwing long shadows on the walls. Passengers cried out, some gripping their seats, others scrambling toward the aisles. Fear spread faster than fire. The ship shook again, as if some massive force struck against its hull. The whispers about the Deathworlder turned into frantic voices. This is it, one alien shouted. The human brought this curse. Another screamed, we should have found it sooner. Now we will all die. The hooded man sat still, his body steady even as the chaos raged around him. His hands gripped the armrests, his jaw tight. Fear was thick in the air, pressing against him from all sides. But inside, something else stirred. Memory. He closed his eyes, and he was back on Earth. He remembered the smell of wet soil after a storm, the kind of storm that tore trees from the ground and left rivers swollen with rage. He remembered standing barefoot in the mud as a boy, his heart pounding, while lightning split the sky into burning pieces. The world had roared at him, but he had not run. Earth had taught him young that fear was not an enemy. Fear was a teacher. The memory shifted. He saw the desert, golden and endless. The sun had burned his skin, the heat pressing against his lungs until every breath felt like fire. His lips cracked, his throat dry, but his legs had carried him forward step after step. Others had fallen behind, but he had kept walking. Earth demanded endurance. Earth rewarded those who refused to stop. He opened his eyes again. The aliens around him were shaking, their voices sharp with terror. They thought danger was the end. They thought fear meant death. But he knew better. Earth had shown him jungles where every leaf hid poison, every shadow hid teeth. Yet his people had lived. There, not just survived but thrived. They had learned to make fire, to make weapons, to make homes even in the most unforgiving corners of the planet. That was what it meant to be human, to live where no one else could. The ship shuddered again. Sparks burst from a panel near the ceiling. The alien passengers screamed louder. Some pressed against the walls as if they could vanish into them. Others clutched each other, praying to gods that could not hear. The insect alien in the aisle hissed, mandibles flaring. This is proof. A Deathworlder is here. The ship falls apart because of it. The man lowered his head, his hood shadowing his face. His voice stayed silent. But inside, a storm raged. He thought of the mountains back on Earth, sharp and cold, where snow could bury villages in minutes. He thought of people digging each other out with their bare hands, refusing to let anyone die alone. Humans were not monsters. They were survivors because they carried each other through the storm. He looked up, his eyes hidden but sharp. These aliens feared him. They whispered about bone-crushing strength, about poisons and fire, about Deathworlders who brought destruction wherever they went. They had no idea. The true danger of humanity was not strength. It was not fire. It was not violence. It was will. The ship's alarm voice boomed, metallic and panicked. Warning, outer hull breach detected, stabilizers failing. Prepare for emergency. The cabin tilted as gravity shifted. Passengers slid across the floor, shrieking. The insect alien grabbed a railing with its claws, its eyes wide in terror. We will not survive this. The man stayed seated, one hand gripping the side of his chair. He breathed slowly, forcing calm into his body. His mind worked like a blade, cutting through the panic, calculating. He knew that whatever attacked, the ship, pirates, asteroids, or beasts, would not stop until someone fought back, but no one here would fight. Not these aliens, not with their trembling hands and frightened eyes. He closed his eyes again, one last memory rising. The fire. He remembered standing at the edge of a burning forest on Earth. Flames rose like walls, devouring everything, the heat so intense it burned his lungs. Animals fled, people screamed, but he had moved forward carrying a child on his back. Step by step he had pushed through the smoke until the sky cleared above him. That was Earth. That was what it gave its children. The will to keep going when everything else burned. He opened his eyes. The panic in the cabin was deafening now. Aliens screamed about the Deathworlder. Some begged for mercy. Others demanded the captain eject whoever it was into space. And all the while the man sat still, breathing steady. He knew the truth they did not. The Deathworlder they feared was not a curse. It was their only hope. The ship groaned again, metal twisting. Something struck the hull hard, throwing passengers from their seats. The lights flickered, then dimmed. The insect alien's silver eyes darted across the cabin, filled with panic. If the Deathworlder is here, let it stand now, let it save us. Silence followed the words. Every alien turned, searching with wide, terrified eyes. The man tightened his fists beneath his cloak. He had remained silent long enough. The ship shook again, harder than before. Sparks rained from the ceiling. A panel burst open, smoke filling the cabin. And then, slowly, he stood. The whispers froze. The fear turned sharp, cutting the air. Every alien eye locked onto him. The hood shadowed his face, but his voice carried clear, calm, unshaken. "Enough," the insect alien hissed, stepping back. You. It's you." The man lifted his hood, revealing his face at last. Human. Eyes stared out at them. Steady, sharp, unbroken. Gasps filled the cabin. The Deathworlder had been among them all along. The sudden threat. The cabin trembled as the starship lurched sideways. Sirens screamed, lights turned blood red, and smoke rolled from broken vents. Passengers clung to anything they could grab, their voices rising in a storm of fear. But all eyes were on him now. The man who had stood, hood thrown back, human face, revealed. The Deathworlder. Gasps filled the air. Some aliens shrank back in terror, others whispered prayers. The insect-like alien hissed, mandibles rattling. "I knew it. I felt it. The human was here all along." The bird-like passengers clutched each other, trembling. One whispered, "We're doomed. If it doesn't kill us, the ship will." The man ignored them. His eyes were on the cabin ceiling where sparks rained from a split panel. The ship groaned, again metal twisting under stress. Something outside slammed against the hull, hard enough to make the floor buck beneath their feet. "Pirates," the man said at last, his voice calm, steady. "Or something worse." The insect alien hissed, louder. "Why should we believe you?" The man's gaze cut to it, sharp as a blade. "Because I know the sound of a ship being hunted." Silence followed. The aliens froze, stunned by the certainty in his voice. Another crash thundered through the walls. The lights flickered. Somewhere down the hall, a child wailed. The announcement. System crackled to life, the captain's voice shaking. "Attention passengers, remain in your seats, we are under attack. Emergency defenses are active." The voice cut out. A second later, the ship shook harder than before. The walls groaned as if something was tearing them apart. Aliens screamed. Some tried to run down the aisles, others dropped to the floor in despair. Panic spread like fire. The man moved. Not with panic, not with hesitation, but with purpose. Walked toward the emergency panel at the side of the cabin. His steps were steady even as the floor tilted under him. Aliens scrambled out of his way, their eyes wide with terror. "Where are you going?" one shouted. "To stop this," he said simply. The insect alien spat. "Impossible. You're just one human." He paused only long enough to look back at it. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the chaos. "One human is enough." The words struck the cabin like thunder. For a moment, the aliens fell silent, watching him with a mix of fear and awe. He reached the panel, ripped off the cover, with one sharp pull, and stared at the controls. His fingers moved quickly, adjusting settings, rerouting power. The ship moaned as energy shifted through its bones. The insect alien stepped closer, glaring. "What are you doing? That system is locked." The man didn't look up. Not locked enough. The ship jolted again. Outside, something screeched against the hull, a sound that made every alien's skin crawl. Whatever was attacking them, it was close. The man turned suddenly, his eyes scanning the cabin. He pointed to the scaled family near the front. "You, get everyone to the back wall, away from the windows." They froze, confused. "Now," he barked. They moved, hurriedly pulling others with them. Soon most of the passengers were pressed against the rear wall, their fear now mixed with a strange instinct to obey him. Another explosion rocked the ship. A section of ceiling tore open, sparks showering the floor. Aliens shrieked, covering their heads. But the man didn't flinch. He looked at the gap, his eyes narrowing. "Boarding," he muttered. "They're coming in," the insect alien hissed. "Then we are finished." The man turned to it, his voice sharp. "No, you're finished if you keep trembling. But if you listen, maybe you'll live." The insect alien froze, caught between fury and fear. The man stepped forward, standing tall in the flickering light. His presence filled the cabin, heavy and unshakable. He was only one man, yet in that moment he seemed larger than all of them. "You whisper about Deathworlders," he said, his voice steady. The silent passenger. The starship was quiet inside, but not peaceful. The air carried a low hum of engines, mixed with hushed voices. Dozens of alien passengers sat in their seats, their eyes shifting nervously, their hands gripping armrests or clutching bags tight. The light panels above flickered softly, casting blue and silver tones across the cabin. Among them sat one man. He kept his hood low, his eyes half hidden in the shadow. His posture was calm, almost too calm for such a tense place. He looked like an ordinary traveler, just another passenger on the ship. But he was not ordinary, and deep inside, he knew, the whispers were about him. The aliens thought they were quiet, but he heard them clearly. Their voices slid between the mechanical hum, carrying words they thought were safe. Deathworlder. The word cut through the silence like a blade. It came from 2 seats behind him, spoken in a harsh whisper. The man's lips pressed together. He stayed still, his breathing slow, careful not to draw attention. He had learned long ago that silence was its own kind of armor. Across the cabin, a tall, insect-like alien leaned close to its companion. Its mandibles clicked as it whispered, "They say it is here, on board this very ship, a human." The companion shivered, its skin glowing faintly blue. "If that is true, we are all in danger." The man tilted his head slightly, his ears catching every word. He did not move otherwise. More whispers rippled through the cabin. A scaled alien near the front muttered, "I heard they can crush bone with their bare hands." Another hissed, No, I'm worse. I heard humans breathe poison air and drink fire." A third voice trembled. "They say their planet itself is cursed, a death world, storms that tear the sky, beasts that hunt even in the dark, and yet they live." The man's eyes lowered. The stories were twisted, exaggerated, but not without truth. Earth was dangerous, its storms, its heat, its wild creatures. They had shaped humanity into something tough. But the aliens only saw monsters where he saw survival. He leaned back, against his seat, listening. His heartbeat was steady, but his mind was sharp, alert. Every whisper was a reminder. They feared what they did not understand. The whispers grew closer. 2 small bird-like aliens sat across the aisle, their feathers puffed in fear. One whispered shakily, "What if it sits right next to us?" The other looked around quickly, then leaned closer. "Do not be foolish. No human would stay this quiet. They are loud, wild, violent." The man almost smiled under his hood. If only they knew. He turned his gaze toward the front window of the cabin. Beyond the glass, stars stretched endlessly in the black sea of space. He had seen them many times, yet they always pulled at him. Out there was freedom, out there was danger, out there was truth. A metallic voice broke the silence. The ship's announcement system crackled. "Passengers remain seated. Arrival to Turson Station in 4 cycles. Maintain calm." But calm was impossible. The whispers did not stop. They grew louder, like a storm of fear filling the ship. The word Deathworlder passed from one mouth to another, feeding their panic. The man closed his eyes, forcing himself to breathe slowly. He thought of Earth. He thought of the rains that soaked the soil, the winds that screamed across mountains, the fire in the deserts, the ice that cut through bone. His people had survived it all. That was why they called humans Deathworlders. But to him, it was only home. Still, he knew the truth. If they discovered who he was, fear could turn into violence. Aliens acted strange when trapped with what they feared. And right now, every pair of eyes was searching, hunting for the silent passenger among them. One alien finally stood, its voice trembling as it spoke to the others. "We must tell the captain. If there is a Deathworlder on board, the ship is not safe." Gasps filled the cabin. A chain reaction of fear spread like fire. Some aliens nodded quickly, others shook their heads. None of them noticed the man in the hood watching quietly, his jaw tight, his mind steady. His hand curled into a fist beneath the cloak. He did not want trouble. He wanted only to reach his destination without drawing attention. But now trouble was walking closer. The insect-like alien from behind stepped into the aisle, looking around, scanning each face. Its glowing eyes narrowed. "If the human is here," it hissed, "we will find it." The man did not move. His children of Earth had taught him patience, and patience was strength. But his pulse quickened. The whispers had become more than just words now. They were hunting him without even knowing it. He knew one truth. The moment would come when silence would no longer protect him. And when that moment came, every whisper in this cabin would fall silent for a different reason. The whispered fear. Insect-like alien's glowing eyes swept across the cabin. Its long legs carried it slowly down the aisle, its claws clicking against the floor with each step. Passengers held their breath, their eyes wide, their hands clutching their belongings, like shields. Every alien in the cabin seemed to shrink into their seats as if hoping the hunter's gaze would pass over them. The man under the hood sat still. His hands rested calmly on his knees. But inside, every muscle was tight, coiled like a spring. He could feel the weight of their fear pressing against him. Heavy as gravity itself, they were whispering about him, hunting him while he sat only a few feet away. A voice came from the back, trembling yet sharp. "Do you not feel it? The air itself is heavier. That is what humans do. Their bodies carry storms inside. They bend, the room around them." Another hissed back, "Quiet. If you speak its name too loud, it will hear you." The man almost laughed, but his jaw stayed clenched. He heard them, of course. He heard every word. His ears had been trained by years of listening for danger. Storms in the trees, footsteps in the night, the breath of something hiding nearby. To him their whispers were louder than shouts. The insect alien paused beside a family of scaled passengers. They looked up in terror, shaking their heads quickly. "Not us," they whispered. "We are harmless." The insect leaned closer, its mandibles clicking. "But do you know who it is?" They shook their heads again, too afraid to answer. The man lowered his gaze, breathing slowly. He remembered Earth. He remembered nights in the forest where predators circled unseen, their whispers carried in the wind. Fear was the same everywhere, he thought. Whether on Earth or across the stars, fear made beings turn against one another. Another passenger, bird-like with trembling wings, leaned toward its companion. "I heard humans can run for days without stopping. Their hearts never quit. They hunt by chasing until prey collapses." The companion shivered, feathers ruffling. "If it is here, then it is waiting. Waiting for us to grow weak." The man closed his eyes for a moment. The stories always twisted truth into terror. Yes, humans could endure. Yes, they had stamina born from struggle. But he was not hunting them, he was simply trying to travel. Yet fear did not listen to truth. The insect alien moved again, scanning faces. Whispers followed behind it like a trail of smoke. One passenger hissed, "Why would a Deathworlder even be here? What does it want?" Another whispered back, "Maybe it escaped its prison. Maybe it hides among us, waiting for the right moment." The man kept his head low, his hood casting a shadow over his features. His silence made him invisible. But invisibility was fragile. He remembered the first time he had heard the word Deathworlder. He had been younger, standing in a trade hub, far from Earth. He had overheard aliens speaking the same way they did now, whispering about monsters from a cursed planet. That day he had smiled at the irony. Monsters? No. Survivors. Humans were survivors. That was all. But tonight, surrounded by fearful whispers, he realized something new. Their fear was not just about survival. It was about control. They feared what they could not control. The insect alien stopped again, its silver eyes narrowing. It tilted its head, mandibles twitching. "I can sense it," it hissed. "The Deathworlder is close." Gasps rippled across the cabin. A mother clutched her child tighter. A merchant hid his face behind his bag. A soldier reached nervously for the weapon he was not supposed to draw. The man's pulse quickened. His silence was beginning to crack. He glanced at the emergency window. Beside him, beyond the glass, stars stretched like endless fireflies in the dark. For the first time, he felt the weight of being trapped. If the wrong pair of eyes looked too closely, if a single whisper pointed toward him, there would be nowhere to run. The insect leaned toward a passenger across the aisle, its voice a low growl. "You. What do you know of the Deathworlder?" The passenger shook its head furiously. "Nothing." The insect's mandibles clicked louder. "Lies. You smell of fear. Tell me." The passenger whimpered. I only heard that humans, they can kill with a touch, that their skin burns, that—" "Enough." The insect snapped, its claws scraping the floor. "We waste time. It is here. I can feel it." The cabin fell silent, every eye darting nervously. The man sat still, but his heart thundered. He could not stay hidden forever. The more they whispered, the closer they came. And if panic exploded, there would be no safety for anyone. He clenched, his jaw forcing himself to breathe slow. His mind turned sharp, searching for options. He could stay quiet. He could reveal himself. Or he could wait for something else to force the choice. And then, as if the universe itself answered, the ship shuddered violently. The lights flickered. Panels sparked above. A loud alarm wailed, filling the cabin with red light. Passengers screamed. Bags fell. A child cried out.